Okay, so what are you struggling with?
So I've spent the past like hour trying to do the on the watch band, like that
Hmm.
bend, how it just kind of bends around where the pin is.
Yeah,
And I've tried like so many different things, and I tried like the opacity mask kind of thing, but I'm having a really hard time figuring out what shapes I need to be using to just create that effect.
yeah. And you're working kind of small. You notice that if you work larger, it'll actually help quite a bit. And so I'm
Okay,
just gonna
make it
increase the size of
smaller.
that, and that'll help a lot of things.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is that you've got kind of this hard line right here. Is that what you're struggling
Right.
with? Okay.
Yeah, that's the struggle.
Yeah, and you also have some hard lines, kind of on these highlights as well.
Right.
So are you using? So let me look at what we've got going on here. So I'm going to double click to go into isolation mode, and then you've got these turned down to 0. Okay, so if we look at the gradient here,
Mm-hmm.
you've got a color stop here that's at you've got a color stop here that's at 100%, I think, 30%, and then you've got one here that's at 0. But you have this hard edge because um, this is only a linear. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
And so you might want to consider doing something like this. So let's take this whole shape, and I'm just going to turn it white.
Okay.
And then if you go to Effect Blur Gaussian Blur,
Oh, I did not know you can do that in Illustrator. That's cool.
yeah, and so it's very similar to all of these effects are actually Photoshop effects,
Yeah.
right? And so they do rasterize. Well, they don't rasterize it. It's still technically a vector graphic, but
Uh-huh.
it's got a raster effect on top of it. And so I'll show you what I mean. But you can kind of dial this in, and that'll give you more of a fuzzy edge. So I'm gonna dial this up like about like that, and then click OK. And then I'm gonna come over to my transparency panel, and I'm gonna blend this with either screen or overlay. And I like screen, and then I'm going to drop my opacity down on the whole object. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that'll give you kind of more of what you were looking for without giving you that hard edge on the right.
Yeah. That's so funny. The whole time I've been saying if I was in Photoshop, I would just blur this, but I did not know you can do that in Illustrator.
Yeah. And the cool thing is it's still vector, so if you use your white arrow tool, you can still grab,
Yeah, that's cool.
right, and pull this over, and you can use you can use these to kind of do stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and so there's one. Now let's see. I'm going to lock this down. Oops. Isolation mode. Grab this one. Lock it. Command 2 to lock it. What is going on here? What's up with this hard line? What is that?
Okay, so what those are is it's the shadows. It's the same thing. It would be fixed with the same thing. So the shadows, like left shadow and right shadow,
Uh,
I had like made the. It was just because the gradient only goes one way. So I think if I did the same thing on that, it would fix that hard line.
okay. Yeah, you can do that. You can also just fuzz out that hard line. Did you see in class how we did that? This is probably a little hard to see
Um,
on the
yeah,
screen.
it was really hard to see on the projector.
So let me show you what happens with an opacity mask. So on the right shadow here, let's say that hypothetically speaking, we like everything that's going on up top, but I just don't like this line.
Right.
I can come into my transparency panel, and it looks like you've already done this a little bit.
Yeah, I tried because I knew that that was the way to do it. I just wasn't sure how to go about it. So I tried, but I still got a hard edge.
Okay. And so the reason that you got a hard edge is that you have a solid shape,
Okay, so you
right?
just need to do like the same thing with
So
opaque.
that is going to hide what's underneath, right?
Right.
Um, and so what you want to do with this is you want it to be a gradient. And so if we go and do a black 100% to a white 100%, and then get rid of this gray. Come on, there we go. And then let's change this to a 90.
So you're editing all of this after you've already placed it on the opacity mask square thing?
Yeah, but you don't have to do it that way.
Oh, okay.
But you notice how as I bring my black up, it just fades that out?
Right, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and so if we get out of this mask, by clicking over here, I'll just show you what that did, just because it's easier to see in colors, because you're doing it right in that you're doing it subtly. But let me just show you, and the viewers at home. Okay, so we've got this red, right? And let's just put like another one on top. And so let's put like a yellow, and then let's change the blending of that yellow to overlay. No, color burn. I'm trying to get it to blend
with the red.
With the red, but it's not. I feel like Illustrator changed the way that they do these, and I don't like the way that, because it used to be a lot more like Photoshop, where they mixed a lot better. We'll just do hue, even though that doesn't do what I want it to do. But okay, so if I take these two objects and I make a mask with these two objects, it takes the top object and automatically copies it into the mask for me.
Okay.
Right? So if I don't want that to happen, then I can grab just this object and go make mask. And it looks like it disappears. It's just because you've got clip selected here. And so if you uncheck clip, then it'll just take anything that's black. And so I'm going to take this gradient that I've got where it's black to white, and I'm going to copy it to my clipboard and paste it into this mask. And so I click on the mask itself, and I paste it in, and then when I move it over, you'll see that where it was black, it's now hidden, and where it was white, it's still showing. And so if I get out of this mask, and I take this yellow, and I throw it behind that object,
then you'll see that. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was on the right track. I just needed to make the gradient on those shapes.
Right. So you're on the right track. But what you weren't doing is it was a solid black object, which was giving you that hard line.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's good.
So yeah. So that can fix. And then this is your brain symbol system telling you that that's round. It's not actually that round. If you look at this,
it's kind of like a plateau.
Yeah, it's pretty flat. I mean, it tapers off and rounds off at the edge, but this will look a lot better. Yikes! Why do we have so many anchor points?
Is it just from different objects, or?
I don't know. It could be from cutting it.
Is that it might be the black shadow, because I've like copied that shape a gazillion times playing with the gradient, so I'm not sure if it's like the shadow layer. I'm not sure if that is.
Okay, so this, you have like a texture layer here. I'm just for my own sanity, I'm just going to delete a billion of these anchor points. Because
I have no idea why I have those.
It happens. Did you use the shape builder tool at some point in time?
Yeah, I've used the shape builder tool a ton.
Okay, yeah, the shape builder tool sometimes it's nice and clean, and other times it's hideous and it just adds a ton. I am just going to do myself a favor and double click to go into isolation mode, and then I'm going to use my white arrow tool to select everything and delete it, and then I'm going to reconnect. So I'm going to go P, grab this endpoint and that endpoint. There we go. Okay, so now I've got that. Actually, I think it would be better if this were over here, and if I had another one of these.
Oh, so we can make it more flat, right?
Yeah, so you can still have it round, but it'll flatten out. So like that. And I'm going to look at my reference just to make sure that I'm doing. So it's a little bit rounder at the top than I have it. I can kind of grab that just a touch and kind of pull that up. Okay, and then I'll want to get this. Is that locked or something? It's probably locked. Let's go find it. Oh, I'm still in isolation mode, that's why I can't touch it. Okay, so then I'm going to grab this guy. Hey, which doesn't have a billion anchor points. That's cool. And this one. And this one. And that's got a few. And so in a situation like this where you've got a bunch of different shapes and you've got these, see how those are overlapping the other things?
Yeah.
You can throw all that down, and instead of copying and pasting that shape, let's just like, throw one down that has your pattern. Okay, throw another down that has the gradient that you want it to have. Oh, my gradient's right here. And so we'll go like, whatever. And then throw another one that gives you the color and all that. So that's all great. But something that will help is after you're done with all of that, then you can just take a single shape. You can just take a single shape and have that single shape mask everything.
And okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Right, and that'll, so you just come in, grab this. We'll add anchor points here, here, here. And, whoa, come back. Still not used to this magic mouse.
Oh, I think I was just tapping my thing to make the screen go brighter again because it fell asleep, so I don't know if it...
Oh, yeah, because you have, when I'm showing my screen, you have some controls. Okay, and then just grab everything, Command 7, right? And then you can control all of those objects. And so if at this point in time I wanted to come in and say I wanted to change the shape of this, then I can change the shape of just the outside edge of it, and everything else will fall into
and it's
place.
already masked. That's so smart.
Yeah, so what I'm actually doing right now is I'm editing the shape in the clipping group. It's the clipping path, I believe it's called. So if you just edit this shape, I mean, I can even come in and add anchor points and adjust them, and it'll cut everything.
Everything, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Right, and so that'll help you control that. Some other things that are making this look not as realistic as you want is that you've got these dark shadows, right, on either side of your stitching, which is great. But what you don't have is you don't have any shadows on your stitches.
Okay.
And so the stitches look like they're kind of hovering above the shadows.
Right.
And then the shadows are actually darker than the holes that the stitches are going into. Oh, you don't have holes.
I need holes.
Yeah, and so if you have some kind of hole here, and we make that darker than the stitches, and let's see. I don't even know if I'm on the right layer. Yeah. So let's grab the stitching in that. Oh, I see. Okay. So let me grab this. Oops. Sorry, white arrow tool and white arrow tool. I just want to see where that is. It's in the top right side thread, just for fun. Not that you would want to do this, but I'm just going to pull it up so we can see what it looks like. Okay, something like that. And then remember that nothing is ever perfectly black or perfectly white. And so one way that you could do that is you could just drop this to make it just a little bit lighter, but significantly darker than your shadows, because the hole is always going to be a little bit darker.
Darker, right.
Right?
Okay.
And you see how that one just looks a little bit better than the rest of them?
Yeah, it does.
Right? And then you can increase that. If we look super close, it'll be hard to see, but you've got a rim along that in your thing. And so our light source is probably coming from pretty high and slightly to the left. Is that what you're going off of?
Right, yeah.
Okay. And so if that's the case, then on this rim, we can come in here and we can just make a little copy. And I'm just going to go up and slightly to the left. And then I'm going to grab this and this and just cut it with my shape builder tool.
Okay.
Okay. And then this side of the shape is going to be facing that light. Does that make sense? because it's turning, it's traveling this direction, and then it turns down, so it'll face that light. And so that's going to get lighter, maybe even significantly lighter. And then this side is facing away from the light, and so it's going to get darker. Okay, and so now it's going to start to look a lot like a hole.
Yeah, it looks great.
Right? And, you know, if you look about like there, you'll see that it's kind of, you know, looking like a hole. Now, because that's a hard edge, it doesn't look like it belongs to this leather. And so there's ways that you could kind of come in and soften that or exaggerate the, you know, different parts of it or whatever. But in any case, having that little, I just wanted that down. Just want to exaggerate that a little bit. Okay, and then taking this whole thing and giving it a little bit of a shadow is also helpful. Okay, and that's going to look a little weird because it doesn't actually line up, and so that's why it's got that super harsh edge, right? But if we had this and we go back, let's select it, and then throw it one back, and then if we just take Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur, Preview, then you start to have a shadow that is actually created by the same shape.
Right.
And so it lets up in between those stitches. And that'll actually help quite a bit. And so if I don't like the Gaussian blur that I just applied, I can go to my appearance panel on the right. It looks like a sunshine. And I can click on blur again and it'll bring that up. And then I can readjust that effect. And that's the cool thing, Illustrator versus Photoshop.
You can't do that in Photoshop.
Right, because Photoshop is a destructive edit, whereas here it's something applied on top of the vector graphic, and so it can be continuously adjusted. So it acts a lot more like a smart object in Photoshop.
Yeah, that's awesome. That looks really good.
Okay, now that's not going to help, and the reason is because as this approaches on this end, this shadow would bend towards it, right?
Right.
And so these, if we're doing like a side view of them, oops. If we're doing like a side view, they're going like this, right? And so this is what the angle we're looking at it is top down. And so the shadow, as it's cast to the side, from this, which is further away, will be further away. But as it approaches the object that it's casting the shadow on, it's going to converge to that point, right? And so in reality, this whole thing would start to kind of drag over, you know, this way. And this would come over this way, kind of like that.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And then there'd be a hole again. So some of that will help. Your metal's looking pretty good. And I don't know.
I'm really excited because like the realistic reflections kind of on the left side. I've made so many shapes, but now that I know I can blur, that's going to help that a lot too.
Yeah, it will.
To build it as darker, I just had no idea that I could do that, so that's going to help a ton.
Yeah, because you can come in and you can say, you know, crank that all the way up to 100.
Right.
And make it even darker. I feel like I should be seeing something. Am I not? I don't see much of a difference. Oh, it's because it's super. Okay. There we go. All right, so we'll bring this all the way over like that. And I'm actually just going to make that radial, and then I'm going to redraw where this is.
What's the key you're using to be able to get that bar to show up once you're in the gradient panel?
It's the G, and it's the gradient annotator tool. And you can change the shape of things. I'm going to inverse this and rotate it. Come on, there we go. So it's more, I want it more at an angle here. Come on. There we go. Sometimes it's a little hard to do well. I'm going to throw this out just a touch. And then if we grab that whole shape, apply that Gaussian blur to it, we can adjust our Gaussian blur, preview, adjust, click OK. And I'm actually seeing it. Remember we talked about in class how it scoops as it approaches an edge?
Yeah.
I think that'll help a lot. And so
Yeah.
it's going to bend along this edge. And so I'm just going to grab this anchor point. Because this is part of a clipping mask, it'll mask off everything we don't need. And I'm going to grab it like this. I'm going to come up a little bit, and then I want it to scoop. And so I'm just going to kind of scoop it like that. Do the same thing up here, except I want this to go inside. And there's not like a hard and fast rule on this. Sometimes it's more interesting when it goes inside. Yeah.
Different.
And so I just want that to kind of scoop it as it approaches. I'm going to add an anchor point here. I'm just going to pull this out. Round that off. It looks like there's something else there. But let's look at that now. And it looks like it's a little dark now. And so I'm going to blend it down. And then drop this until I kind of like there we go.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So you can kind of play with those. And then your lugs look like they're out of order.
Oh yeah, I think they're definitely not supposed to be on top.
Yeah.
That's probably just...
That might have just happened. I don't know. I might have messed with that.
I think when I copied it over, because I just made a new artboard because I had a ton of extra stuff in there, so maybe I...
Oh, right.
Did it.
I'm just going to put it beneath the watch. There we go.
What I need to do now that I'm looking at this, like in class when you were saying, even if your reference doesn't have a glass glare, to still add it because it will help your cause. I need to do that still.
Yeah, definitely. That will help a lot. And so you can just use this. If you copy paste in front, bring it all the way to the top, change it to pure white, and let's put it on top of... so I'm going to create another layer called glass. I'm not sure how true this is or not, but I feel like professional photographers take the glass out of watches when they shoot them.
Oh, could be.
Yeah, because there's all kinds of tricks that they run on things like that.
Right.
I'm going to put this in the glass. Oh, come on now. I want to let me do it. Like that. There we go. Okay, then I'm going to get rid of my stroke, and I'm going to check to see if there's anything weird going on. Okay, nothing weird going on. And so I like to give it just a little bit of an edge, and so I'll bring it just a touch smaller or a touch larger than everything else. And I'm probably going to go just a touch larger, just because the more kind of edges here that define the form, the better. Mm-hmm. And then one thing that I like to do is cut it along the angle of the light source.
Mm-hmm.
And so our light source is probably like that, but I'm just going to give it a little bit more interesting thing like that. And then I'm going to pull this line to give it just a slight curve. And I'm trying to avoid tangents, so I'll go about like there. Make sure that I'm cutting a stroke, so I'll grab this shape builder tool, hold Alt to delete that, and that is going to leave this weird line, and so I'm just going to grab that line and delete it. Okay, and then this guy, which is still not on top of my hands. So I'm going to put the glass above the hands. There we go. Okay, so this guy now, we want him to either screen or overlay. So overlay is good, but it's super blown out. So I'm going to drop this just a touch, like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna run a gradient along this line. And so I'm going to grab that gradient tool by pressing G, and I drag it along this line like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is on the same shape.
On the same shape, yeah. And I want it to be linear. I'm going to redraw it. Okay. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I can come in here and do this. Just so we can see what's going on, I'm going to make this blue. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to go and get rid of this, and this is bringing this to 100. All right. And so we go 100% opacity to 0% opacity, and it looks like I'm way too low, so let me just crank this up. I'm going to take overlay off. There we go. Okay, so when you look at this, you'll kind of see that it kind of gives it that, that little tinge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can grab this now and change these to white, and this one to white. Oh, I don't have it selected. So white and white. Okay, and then it kind of gives it that little bit of a, see how that looks? That little bit of a reflection.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. And then the next thing that you can do, and I should have done this in the beginning, is let's grab this shape again, and I'm going to copy, paste in front, bring it all the way to the top, and I want to send it to this layer. So let's grab it and stick it in glass here. And I'm going to call this main. And we're just going to use this to make a bunch of different shapes. And so I'm just going to make it white with no stroke. Okay, and copy, paste in front, copy, paste in front, and then I'm going to hide main. So now I have two, let's see, I have 3 copies of main.
Same shape, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of that, and we'll just call this like sliver, and we'll call this like cut, because it doesn't actually matter right now. And so I'm going to take cut, and because I have my light source in the upper, slightly left, if my how do you say that? If the plane of the glass is traveling this direction, when it hits this edge, it's going to take a 45-degree turn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to kind of indicate that 45-degree turn. And so I'm going to come down a little bit, like this, and then I'm going to take main, or I'm going to take cut and sliver, and I'm going to cut them up with my shape builder tool. Okay, and then that gives me that little bit of that glass rim. Right? And so I can take that, but it's going to be lighter on the sides, and so I'm actually going to add a gradient to that too. So I'm going to add this gradient to it. I'm going to go linear, and I'm going to go to 0 on opacity, and then I'm going to adjust where that is. I want it to run this way. Okay. And so, but I want it to be white. So this is going to be white, and this is going to be white. There we go. Okay, and if we just leave it like that, you can kind of see that little sliver, and then it kind of fades into obscurity on the edge.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put this...
Do like the show hide on the layer really quick, just so I can see that exact shape that you just made?
Sure, so... it would be this one. Nope, that's our glare. So it's this guy.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
Right. And so that little sliver, and then you can take that and you can do the same thing. So we can come in here and we can, drop the opacity slightly. If I actually have it selected, it'll work. There we go. Okay, so drop the opacity slightly like that. Okay, and so it's just that little bit of subtle.
Yeah, that looks really good.
Right. Yeah, and then the other thing is I'd be really careful. It looks like you've got kind of this outline stroke on the outside edge, but I'm not seeing that in your reference.
I think I was like trying to do, let's see what I was trying to do. I think it was more like a shadow thing, but I think what I need to do is go through and offset it so it's only on one side or something like that.
Right. And so I would come in and I would draw a line of your
light source
so that you know exactly what's going on and where it is. And then just think about each object, which way is this facing? and how would it affect the light, right? And so this one,
Yeah, and none of those, because that was like going to be the last thing, was because, like, for example, the top band and the bottom band are the exact same. Once I was done doing the details, I was going to do, like, go and fix the shadows according to the light,
right?
just in case the objects themselves still needed to be edited.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that will be good to go through and do that with the draw line source and stuff.
Yep, that makes sense.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, well, this is awesome. This gives me a lot to work on. So
Good. Okay.
very
Any other
cool.
questions or anything?
Um, not that I can think of right now. I'm just super excited that there's a blur thing.
Yeah.
That's gonna change a lot.
Yeah, the blur is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
It will significantly slow down your computer.
That's okay.
It's a pretty intense process.
Yeah.
And you can turn them off and turn it off.